Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, what a TWO-FER Thursday episode we have planned for you. Team win totals for the 2021 season in the Big Ten with two of the brightest minds you will find across the Locked On Podcast Network's Big Ten community. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Big Ten Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ben Stevens. It is Thursday, May 13th, and today's episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, only one way to start off a TWO-FER Thursday. That's by singing the jingle. If you guys want to join, please do it. All the parts your car will ever need. Rock Auto. Visit rockauto.com and tell them the Locked On Podcast Network sent you. I said this is a TWO-FER Thursday of epic proportions because for the first time in the history of the Locked On Big Ten Podcast, we have both of the co-hosts of the Locked On Badgers podcast. It is Asher Lowe and Ben Kenney here to look around at the 2021 Big Ten team totals that we have set for the college football season, react to it, and have some fun. So, gentlemen, great to have you both here on the Locked On Big Ten podcast.
Great to be here, Ben. I'm wearing the one jersey that, I guess, great to be here, Ben's, plural. I'm wearing the one jersey that could relate to both my hometown and to the Wisconsin Badgers. This is a beautiful, one-of-a-kind, and I mean one-of-a-kind because I don't know many other people that have this, Sam Decker Clippers jersey that I'm repping today.
Hell yeah. I mean, listen. There's two Bens on a TWO-FER Thursday. This is also the first time, if you are watching this on Locked On Big Ten's YouTube channel, I have had this set up with three guests all in one. And it looks like it's got like the Brady Bunch theme song. This is very exciting stuff. We're making history here on the Locked On Big Ten podcast, from one Ben to the other Ben on this TWO-FER Thursday. Ben Kenney, how are you?
It's good to be here. I got my second vaccine today, so you're getting delirious Kenney. It hasn't really set in yet, but it could maybe as we get into talking about Wisconsin, you could get delirious Kenney.
I can't wait. I hope that makes the takes even that more wonderful here on a TWO-FER Thursday. Also, Asher, I think we need to congratulate Mr. Kenney on graduating from the University of Wisconsin this past weekend. A round of applause for Ben Kenney, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Badgers, but he will still be in Madison, Wisconsin, still giving us great takes on Badger football, basketball, all of the sorts. So let's begin there. I set the 2021 Big Ten team totals this past week. We went through the East Division and then the West Division. And for Wisconsin, I have them as the best number in the Big Ten West. The Badgers at 9.5 wins as the team win total for the 2021 college football season. We will begin with the most recent graduate in Ben Kenney. What was your reaction to that number I set for Wisconsin?
Honestly, I think it's a perfect number. I see Wisconsin. I would take the over. I see Wisconsin as a 10-2 team, but they're right around that kind of area where they're playing Penn State and Michigan early in the season. I see them winning one of those two games, but both could easily be losses. And then you also have Notre Dame out of conference, Army out of conference, and the Big Ten West will be tough. They're going to have to play Northwestern as they always do, and Iowa. They do get those games at home, but then Minnesota to end the year on the road, I see 2 or 3 losses coming out of that. So I think 9.5 is perfect.
Asher, what did you make of the 9.5 team win total?
I wish I could give you good podcasting and completely disagree, but I actually agree with both of you. I think that this win total makes a ton of sense. I think you have one game on this schedule that Wisconsin will lose that we're not expecting them to, as it seems to always happen with this team. There'll be that one game where you're not expecting them to lose it. They'll lose it. And then you have 2 or 3 games that are very losable that we know going in to those games will be very difficult. Ben already mentioned them in Penn State week 1, and of course, Notre Dame at Soldier Field. That's going to be a ridiculous game, especially if Jack Cohn is the starting quarterback for the Fighting Irish. That's probably a record mention on the Locked On Big Ten podcast, but as is life when you have Ben Kenney and Asher Lowe on.
I mean, it's fair. It's the Jack Cohn revenge game if he's the starting quarterback for the Irish, which have we any reports from Notre Dame spring football into summer workouts? How's it looking, Ben Kenney? Is he going to be the guy for Brian Kelly and co this year?
They were saying that it's a competition at this point. I believe there's a sophomore also vying for the job. All I know is from an outside perspective is that if he doesn't start, that's one of the most ridiculous things you could see a coach do.
I would agree. I think he's the guy. I will also say a lot of the toughest tests for Wisconsin this year, outside of the game at Soldier Field, which will be a neutral type environment for Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Having them at home in Camp Randall in Madison, where we expect crowds to be back at least close to full capacity, if not 100% by the time we get there, I think is a huge advantage for Wisconsin. So I think the schedule is slightly favorable when you look at Wisconsin trying to get back to the top of the Big Ten West. So I ask you first, Asher, you said the number was good at 9.5. You mentioned a couple of games that could go either way. Would you lean over or under that 9.5 right now?
Oof. I would lean, if you forced me to make a prediction, I would say over. I would say over, but I think 9 is just as likely as 10 wins. So I'm very split. That's, as I said, it's a perfect number. I think 9 wins and 10 wins are the two options that I think are like, there's a 90% chance to me that Wisconsin either wins 9 games or 10 games. All other scenarios would really shock me in either direction. So it's one of those two, and boom, you said it. Vegas always knows, or in this case, Ben Stevens always knows, your win total is 9.5.
Ben, you?
I think I would take the over. I think I would. I see them, I said it, I see them losing to either Penn State or Michigan, and then either Notre Dame or Iowa. So there are 2 losses right there. If they do end up losing 3, the Purdue game really scares me. Like, that's that one game during the season where they go on the road and they lose just for no reason. And even though Purdue as a team doesn't scare me very much, that game does. But I would take the over. Everything is moving in their direction with them being able to have a full offseason, fans back, Mertz getting the whole offseason to throw to the wide receivers that are coming back and the young guys. I like where they're at. I would take the over, and then I don't really want to talk about what I think will happen in the Big Ten championship.
I mean, that's a point we don't really need to discuss. I have been guesstimating and approximating these team win totals. We know from our friends at BetOnline, they have set the 2021 future odds for the Big Ten Conference Championship. Ohio State at 2-3, Wisconsin at 8-1, pretty much showing us what they think will happen, like it generally does in the Big Ten Conference. I would say, and I'm just going to throw this out there, Ben, I think you bring up a great point about that road game at Purdue and West Lafayette, always a very difficult place to play. I think there's a genuine chance Wisconsin could get to 11 wins. And I say that really indicative about what happens week number 1. Because going around the spring football tour as we did, Ben Kenney was our host that day in Madison. Asher, I missed you dearly, but it was great to have Ben on the show. I learned a lot about where the Big Ten Conference sets up early on, and obviously a lot can change by the time we get to September, and especially as we go throughout the season. But I think that week 1 showdown in Camp Randall against Penn State will show me a lot about this Wisconsin team, and I think they get Penn State at a pretty good time, where if that game was week 8 or week 9 in that crossover matchup, maybe I would feel differently. If Wisconsin comes out and looks really good and picks up a win week 1, I think that sets the tone for the rest of the season for that team to possibly get to 11 wins. I think it is in the cards for Wisconsin this year. That's why I would lean the over. I think it's more likely 10 than 11, but I would lean the over of that number as well at 9.5. So, gentlemen, I think we continue rolling on through the Big Ten Conference and some of these team win totals. You can take it however direction you want to go. If you want to go west, you want to go east, just one of the numbers that maybe stood out to you as a little bit intriguing, either one that you think will go way under, way over, whatever stood out in your mind. Ben Kenney, we begin with you.
There were 2, and one of them might just be a pride thing, but Illinois at 3.5, I think there's a genuine chance this year that they don't win a single game. Brett Bielema comes in. He clearly has a lot of work to do. Their schedule isn't a great one, and I don't see any way they get to 4 wins. On the other side of it, and we'll see how it goes. I don't know. It's a pride thing. I can't
anywhere to 4. I mean, I think the number's fair. I honestly thought I was going to get a little bit of shine from some Illinois fans when I posted 3.5, but I think you see it even in the betting markets as BetOnline having them as the least likely odds to win the Big Ten at 100-1, that this is going to be a big rebuild for Burt in his first year in Champaign. But I think getting to 4 is a possibility. I think 3.5 is right, but I think they would win a couple games. I mean, you at UTSA at home, like that's probably going to be a win. You would think, right? I don't know. Unless you know more about UTSA than I do in their football program. But continue on, Ben.
The other one that really stuck out to me in the East, I love Indiana over 7.5. I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting about what they were last year. Now they return Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, so you could lead his second Heisman campaign. And 7.5 is a number where Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State will all be tough. But this is an Indiana team that was by far the second best team in the East last year. They bring back a lot of their contributors. I think they get back and finish second in the East again. Even though I like Penn State and Michigan, I think Indiana gets to 9 wins.
I like that. That's a bold take so far. I hope it's not Vax number 2 that's leading you to say that, and that's what you felt all along. I think it's likely. Listen, if there had been a full slate last year for Indiana, and everybody knows I love IU, yeah, Asher, keep your smile away. Anyway, I think if there had been a full season last year for Indiana, they might have won 8 games in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 1993 or something like that. Something like in a very long time it took them to get back-to-back 8-win seasons. I think they were destined for that. To go 6-1 last year in the Big Ten, obviously stumbled in the bowl game as well. But I think that Indiana has its sights set on 8 or 9. I just thought based on the schedule, because some of those non-conference games with the likes of Cincinnati and the other one that I'm forgetting right now, looking at it, where's the East? There it is. Cincinnati is tough. And then I think to have Iowa to start on the road is difficult. So 2 of those first 3 weeks, I think, are tough for the Hoosiers. But I would agree. I would go over 7.5. I was debating 7.5 and 8.5. Settled on 7.5 to hopefully get some more over money, making Indiana look better. Asher?
So first thing I would say is, I'm not as much of an Indiana hater anymore because I think Mike Woodson is a tremendous hire. And I totally disagree with most of the college basketball media about that hire. And I'm actually on Team Indiana there. But back to your win totals, I'm going to go 2 Big Ten West teams here because that is my bread and butter, of course. Mm-hmm. First one I'm going with is, and this is a scary thing to say as a Wisconsin fan because they always seem to bite us somehow, Northwestern under 6.5. And I think that there are a few reasons as to why that is. You had first-round talent, right, going off of that defense in this NFL draft. Newsome was one of the best second players in the secondary in the country, let alone in the Big Ten Conference. You have Peyton Ramsey, right, who didn't necessarily wow us last year. Like that was a team led by their defense. Ramsey was good enough to win games. He wasn't special. That was a team that relied on their defense. And when you lose first-round talent and a bunch of other talent around that side of the football, when you lose that much from that defense a year ago, and you're playing in a Big Ten that doesn't give you free games, and you have a non-conference schedule, by the way, looking at this non-conference schedule, there's one free win here, and it's at home versus Ohio. At Duke, it's not a free win. Or sorry, Indiana State is a free win too. Fine, I'll give them 2. Larry Bird, though, shout out. But
hey, Ohio's a good MAC team, though. Frank Solich, former Nebraska head coach, he knows it.
Probably a harder game than Indiana State. But at Duke is no gimme on September 18th, no gimme at all. And then you open the season with Michigan State, which is a very interesting game for both of those programs. And I think we'll see how their season goes, like based on that win or loss for both of them. And then you close the year with your final 6 games here are pretty disastrous. At Michigan is an L. You have Iowa and Wisconsin in back-to-back weeks, and you're playing at Camp Randall. You don't get Purdue at home. You get them at Wrigley, which is like who knows how that looks.
Right, that's a good point.
And you finish at Illinois in a game that probably won't matter to either team really, but that's a road rivalry game in the final week of the season. And if Illinois is going to come out for any game all year because they're not going to be competitive in the Big Ten, as Ben said, it's going to be that one. So I don't love the way the end of their season schedule shapes up. I don't love that they have Michigan on the road. That's just an auto L. Wisconsin on the road. Those are 2 automatic losses on this schedule. Yes, no, Ohio State helps, but 6.5 is a big number. Like 5 and 7 is probably the more likely scenario here for this Northwestern team. Second team I'm going to go with, and this is just classic. I don't even need to give you much behind this. Nebraska under 5.5. I
knew where that was going. I knew where it was going.
Give you a Nebraska over. It's been right the last 2 years. And when I say it's been right, I mean my hatred of Nebraska football. This isn't the year. They're not going to suddenly magically become good defensively this year. They have better offensive talent than maybe had 2-3 years ago, maybe. But are they actually trending in the right direction at all? Like is either unit trending in the right direction? Have we seen anything besides excuses that shows you that Scott Frost is the dude at Nebraska? And like you look at their schedule as well. I don't dislike it necessarily as much as Northwestern's schedule. They actually get Northwestern at home, which is once again one of those kind of rubber match games that I think decide a lot of things. When there's those 2 middling teams in the Big Ten playing each other, which there's a lot of those games, those games tend to decide a lot about how seasons go. But I'm never going to pick a Scott Frost-led team at Nebraska. I just don't think it's ever going to work there.
Let me just retort a couple of the things you said. Their defense actually was vastly improved last year in a smaller sample size under Eric Chinander. Are they going to lead the Big Ten in any defensive category? Most likely not, but it was much improved. The question I have is, some of the offensive talent actually has left Nebraska, but I still think they have athletes in place at the skill position. What?
I like Luke's gone, but they got running back that I personally really wanted at Wisconsin in the transfer. But I just think that the Scott Frost-led teams have shown that they can't put together consistent week-to-week performances. It's been they look like they're back one week, and then the next week is a complete, utter disaster. And I just don't think 5 wins is a lot already in the Big Ten Conference. That's already significant. 5.5 to get over that, I'll take the under.
Here's where I agree with you. I think trending in the right direction is a thing that's quite variable for Nebraska right now. I think getting to 6 wins, getting over the number that I have set arbitrarily, would be a step in the right direction, even if Nebraska fans might not feel as enthusiastic about that. But I think bowl eligibility and ending with a positive will be huge for Nebraska this year. But here's where I agree, Asher, is that schedule is very, very difficult. We've gone over it a couple of times at Illinois on the road to start out the year. That game was supposed to be in Dublin. Now it's going to be in Champaign. Whatever, that's fine. They have Fordham week number 2. But then those 2 other non-conference games, I don't think are automatic wins. To have Buffalo, the MAC champs from last year, yes, it's at home in Lincoln, so that's a good sign. But still, I think that's going to be a tough test. On the road at Oklahoma, in Norman, I would think you would chalk that up to an L. I think a couple of those games that they have on the road in Big Ten play will really decide if they go over or under, including that Michigan State team that I'm a little bit higher on than I think other people are, Ashton. I think you brought up a great point when you spoke about that matchup against Northwestern. They have Michigan at home. Being at home, that's okay, but then on the road at Minnesota, on the road at Wisconsin, and then they have Ohio State and Iowa to end out the year. I mean, their final month of November, after they play Purdue in the final weekend of October on Halloween weekend, to have Ohio State a bye on the road at Wisconsin, hosting Iowa. If they're not at 6 wins by the time they get to November, it's going to be very, very difficult to find bowl eligibility there for Scott Frost in Nebraska.
The math just doesn't do very well for them. Like when you look at the schedule of the math of getting to 6 wins, I think Michigan is going to be a lot better, like a lot better this year. Mm-hmm. I think they have, in terms of recruit, we were talking about this on Locked On Badgers, but in terms of recruiting, and yes, it matters. I wish it didn't matter as much, but yeah, 4- and 5-star guys generally do perform better. I wish stars didn't matter as much as they do, but they usually do. And it's Michigan's recruiting classes that are above the rest, outside of course, the powerhouse that is Ohio State. And I think that talent comes to play this year in a real long year. And you look at their schedule, in Michigan at home, Ohio State at home is an auto L. At Wisconsin, I think is an auto L. That's 3 losses. Like, I think almost automatically it would take miracles. Yeah. Oklahoma is an auto L. That's 4 games that I think they have almost no chance of winning. At home against Michigan, yeah, there's a better chance than the other 3. But those other 3 are I'm 99-1 with those other 3. I think you'd agree with that. At Oklahoma,
the moment, yeah.
Wisconsin, home against Ohio State, there's no win there. And there's 1 automatic win at home against Fordham, or so you'd think.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's up. I agree with the math. The math is going to be difficult. I think the progress is right for Scott Frost, but Asher brings up a great point. I think it's even felt in the Huskers fan base right now. The talk of we're practicing super hard. This was our best week of practice. The strides we have seen in summer workouts, it's getting tired right now in Lincoln, and they want to see some actual results, and that means wins in the win column for that Nebraska team. Ben Kenney, any closing thoughts here as we round out this 2 for Thursday episode?
Well, I'll say this about Nebraska. At least they're not ranked in the top 25, because if they were, then they would go in the tank during the year. But if expectations are a little lower nationally and in Lincoln, then that's when I think they could be a little better. Final thoughts, I completely agree with Northwestern. They lost everyone. Blake Gallagher, Eku Leota transferred, Newsome, Peyton Ramsey, Bowser, and Anderson. I think they're going to really struggle. I kind of like Minnesota, and it sucks to say, but I like at 5.5. Yeah. At 5.5, I like them a little bit over. I think they're going to be much improved if they can play defense. But Muhammad Ibrahim back is the biggest thing that could have happened to that football team. So if they can play defense, then they'll get to 6 or 7 wins.
I don't think having Minnesota and Nebraska at the same level, Ben, is necessarily fair in terms of your win totals. I don't think that's exactly fair heading into this year. That's probably my biggest problem with the Big Ten West win totals. You said I'd probably put Minnesota at 6.5, Nebraska maybe at 5 exactly. So you push there with that 5, but
yeah, Yeah, I did everything to a half. That's a good point. But I would say I have some questions about Minnesota. I got into a small discussion. I would not call it an argument by any means with a great follow on Twitter. Gophers Forever is the name of that Twitter account. But he also felt, or she, I'm not entirely sure.
We were
felt
tagged
that I
in
was
it.
what?
We were
you
tagged in that entire thread. Yeah. No, Locked On Badgers was.
Really? I didn't realize that. Oh, because it was tagged in the photo.
Yeah.
Right. You're right.
I was like, this is out here coming after us because they see Badgers.
I thought that was the case because of the axe. I didn't know. But they also felt that I was going a little bit too under on Minnesota, setting the line at 5.5. And in the discussion with Andrew Wade on Tuesday's episode, I also said under. I look at the schedule. It's not the worst for Minnesota. My biggest question is I have to see that defense perform before I can say, just because they have returning production, that it all makes sense. I think having experience is great, but what did that experience teach you? Some of their crossovers are tough. They have Ohio State on the road at Indiana, on the road at Iowa. That's going to be difficult. On the road at Minnesota and Purdue, the two games that you would hope to leapfrog within the middle of that Big Ten West, I think make things a little bit more difficult. Colorado in the non-conference is going to be a tough game as well. Colorado was supposed to play in the Pac-12 championship game last year, albeit COVID kept them out of that. So I think it's a difficult-ish schedule, not the hardest we see across the Big Ten Conference. But I think getting to 6 wins is very much a possibility, maybe even 7 for PJ Fleck and company. Having Tanner Morgan back, having Mo Ibrahim back, the Big Ten running back of the year from 2020 is going to be huge. They have Chris Ottman-Bell. They have pieces along the offensive line. Pretty much everybody returns. I get it. The returning production is there. I need to see the defense be a whole heck of a lot better than it was last year, because at times it was open floodgate. Pick what you wanted to do. You were getting 400 or 500 yards a game.
I would close by only saying this, Ben Stevens. Do you think that – this is a question for you. Do you think – and Ben Kenney as well. Do you think that Ohio State at 2-3, so about minus 150, do you think that's disrespectful to win the Big Ten? Because I think that's actually great value. Like I'd put them at the end of the season around minus 300.
I would have them closer to what Clemson is in BetOnline's odds at 1-8, because I think they're that staunch of a favorite, because they will be the team out of the Big Ten East. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad value relatively,
right? Where even if it's Wisconsin in there, that's a minus 500 money line, minus 450 money line.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, it absolutely is. You're just wrong. It just is. That's going to be a 3.5-point spread. I mean, that's going to be a 4.5-point spread.
2 of the last 4 years, Wisconsin has faced Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. They were 6.5 to 7-point dogs, and they battled with them. And in 26,
what line were you looking at? They were double-digit dogs in 2019.
2017.
He said 2 of the last 3.
Oh, whatever. They battled.
2 of the last 4.
Yeah, including 2017 when they
had
were
a
a drive away from winning.
halftime.
Oh, I was there, and it was sad.
Yeah, it was tough. I will say this.
Yeah.
There's no way Ohio State goes undefeated in the regular season. They're going to lose at least 1. So I would love the under 11.5. At either Oregon, Indiana, not Michigan, but Penn State, they're going to lose 1.
I got to stop this capping. In 2019, guess what the Ohio State money line was heading into that game in 2019?
Well, it was like 550. I was talking about 2017.
It was minus 730.
Yeah.
Which was I mean, listen, he was over 2017, dude. That's your co-host. Be nice to him. I think it would be difficult for Ohio State to go undefeated. It's very tough to do in college football. There's always one game that you might slip up on that you will be a 2-touchdown favorite in anyway. To go on the road at Indiana will be tough. Oregon, we'll see exactly what they look like this year. They have a good defense. Kayvon Thibodeau, obviously. Penn State on the road at Michigan. Listen, I agree. I think to go undefeated will be difficult, but you can't set the line at 10.5 because then everybody takes the over. So that's why I had to go 11.5.
No, you're right.
Oregon's
you're right.
Oregon's
we'll
tough.
see him in December.
Yeah, I honestly think it will be Ohio State and Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game in Lucas Oil Stadium in the first weekend of December. I think that will be the case.
Agreed. And wouldn't you think it would be great value to have essentially minus 150 on that game instead of minus 500?
Right. That's a great point. That's a guy that used to do something called BD, but now you know what I'm saying. Now he's one of the co-hosts.
That's a Twitter banned account. We can't talk about this.
I know. That's why I didn't say all of it. Listen, are you guys having fun co-hosting together so far? What is this? The first month, really, that you guys have been together as co-hosts on Locked On Badgers? I think it's been fantastic. Have you guys had fun?
Absolutely. Just need more content to talk about. But
I hear you.
It's definitely the dog days of summer approaching. But Yeah, we've had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm glad Ben can bring a lot more football knowledge than I have to the show. It helps a lot.
The only bad thing about it so far is we haven't disagreed enough. Like we haven't found specific things where we're on opposite spectrums. So, but that'll come.
Agreed.
The 2019 Big Ten championship game money line. Is that a good start?
In season, I think that'll come more.
Yeah, for sure. You guys are doing a great job. I appreciate you both being here on 2-FER Thursday. The two hosts of Locked On Badgers, Ben Kenney and Asher Lowe, joining this 2-FER Thursday episode, giving you guys some great insight on those 2021 Big Ten team win totals. What we liked, what we didn't, over, under, all of that. Thank you to you both. Ben, we go with you first because Asher always has to get in a snide remark at the end. So you can go here, and I say thank you to you.
No, it was great to be on. Always a pleasure. I'm looking forward. Notre Dame weekend, September 25th. I'm coming on this show at either before the game, after the game, when Jack Cohn goes for 350-4 and Wisconsin still wins, but I get to ride the coattails a little bit and then, leave him to the side while Wisconsin goes to the Big Ten championship.
Fair enough. You have a deal, my friend. Asher Lowe?
Mike Woodson, 2021 Big Ten Coach of the Year.
And finish?
That's it.
On Wisconsin. You always say on Wisconsin, dude. Come on.
No, this is Locked On Big Ten. That's
all right, fair enough. Asher Lowe, Ben Kenney, thank you very much.
What do they say in Bloomington? Hail Indiana?
9 Windiana. That's what we'll end it with. 2-FER Thursday, Locked On Big Ten.
Basketball school.